All right, we'll get rolling. I'm super excited to start this trainer development series. We'll be holding this every Wednesday at 12 o'clock right here on this link. Each week, we'll have a different leader in our company, whether it's a top personal trainer or an FM leading this. Just our goal is to help you guys become better, more successful, and make this a rewarding career for all of you. I'm happy that we have Tiger Faulkner, who was a rookie of the year when he first started. He was a two-time trainer of the year. Last year, he trained clients for 26 hours straight, and he's promised to sell over $100,000 in personal revenue this November. It took him a little bit to start growing, but now he's committed to professional excellence. And once he committed to mastering the principles that he's going to be reviewing today, he proved what's possible, just like any of you can choose to do going forward. So, Tiger, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Well, thank you for burning my boats on the November project, but hopefully that goes well. But yeah, I mean, we can go on to the next page, Andy. But like Brandon was saying, the main point of these webinars is to help propel you guys towards success, I mean, as quickly as we can, okay? We want all of you guys to do well. We felt that this might be one system or one add-on that we could give you guys that would help get you there. We can go to the next one, Andy. Okay, so why was that like something that we felt like we needed a webinar for? At the end of the day, this is like really hard, okay? Brandon told you guys just now that I started out really slow, and that's true. And you'll see some of the stats on there, and like recent data shows that up to 90% of startups fail. And so we wanted to give you guys something again that would help give you support. The cool thing is that you guys are starting your own business, and I know personally I view it that way, where like this is my business that I'm running, and I encourage all of you guys to do the same thing because it does lead to a higher level of ownership. The cool part about starting your own business, at least with Genesis, though, is that you have support from people that have done it before, and again, some of the best leaders, I would argue, in the industry of personal training or exercise or gyms, regardless. Okay. So our first thing that we need to be focusing on is, well, what is the greatest indicator of a successful PT? Because how you determine success might be very different than how I do. So we could view it as like client progress. We could say it's your bench press max. Is it being a good person morally, right? And what is that defines success for a personal trainer? Okay. My belief, Andy, we can go to the next one, is that the greatest indicator for whether or not a personal trainer is successful is their active client roster. So how many clients do they have that they're actively, working with on a regular basis? I think it'd be incredibly hard to be a bad trainer and have 30 clients, right? It's gonna be hard to be a bad trainer and someone pay you $100 plus an hour. Okay, so that needs to be our focus point, is like how many clients do they have? And so our goal is gonna be to get you guys to have more clients, right? We can go to the next one, Andy. So as much as I'd love to sit on these webinars, and I'm sure in the future there are going to be times where Brandon has somebody come on and talk to you guys about biomechanics and all of that fun stuff in regards to training or programming principles, I felt like that was something that should be done down the line, because your knowledge doesn't necessarily matter if you don't have anybody to teach it to or anybody that's going to learn from your knowledge, right? So we're going to work through the skill portion of this framework. Okay, and you guys see the work time skill matrix up there at the top. The skill portion of doing contacts and doing consults in order to actually get clients, right? And then once you have those clients, that's where you can put your focus on creating impact. Okay, but we have to do the precursor steps first, and that all starts with nailing your contacts, nailing your consults, and doing a good job at that. We can't do the work for you, but we can surely teach you how to do it, hopefully better than what you currently are. And hopefully that empowers you to go do that work after this call even, or throughout the rest of the week, etc., because you're going to feel like you're doing a good job. Okay. So today we're going to go through a thing called the closer framework. This does come from Alex Hormozi. If any of you guys know who that is, if you don't, you should check him out. But we're going to try to apply it over to personal training as much as we can. I do have a trigger warning on there, just for some of you, and maybe this isn't a big deal to some, but it might be. I will probably use the term conversion. There's a good chance I use the term closing percentage or sale or close. At the end of the day, we have to talk about these things because we're not retail personal trainers, all right? People don't come into a health club like they would, let's say American Eagle, where I used to work back in the day, and ask for a personal trainer. American Eagle, they go in and they know they want a t-shirt and they're gonna buy a t-shirt, right? That's not how this works. We essentially have to convince people to do this, okay? So I put the first rule of water rescue on there is to not endanger yourself, okay? So I view us as swim coaches rather than lifeguards. But at the same time, we can't help somebody that doesn't want to be helped yet. And so if you were to try to save someone that's drowning, if they're flailing all over the place and they're possibly going to put you in danger, it's not in your best interest to just go chase after them and try to save this person from drowning. Okay, so what I'm getting to is we essentially would have to calm the person down and make them understand that they need help, and then they're going to allow our help, right? And you guys will see this Mayo Clinic study, and I don't know if this is on all of the PFA packages we do across the company, but I know here at West Central, this is like a staple for us that we go over during our assessment process. But 71% of Americans claim to be in good health. The actual number is 2.7%, right? And as personal trainers, we all know that there's a massive disparity between 71% of people being healthy versus the actuality of it only being 2.7. The problem is that most people don't. So 7 out of 10 people that you're going to meet or you're going to call or you're going to talk to around personal training probably think they're already healthy and that they don't need to make a change. So it's our job to, I guess, show them and hold up a mirror that there is a change that's needed. And not only that, but we are the best option for that change. Okay. Next slide. Thank you, Andy. Okay, the best part is that we truly are the best option, right? And we have that. And this is where I have the lifeguard versus swim coaches. Okay. Your doctor, right? If we're looking at like your health, they might stop you from getting sicker than what you currently are, or they might help fix a problem that's already been created. Our role as personal trainers is to teach people how to swim or to teach people how to be resistant towards health problems in the future or future injuries, right? And we have some of like the stats here from our own club here. But yeah, like I was saying, the best part about this is that we're proactive in terms of our healthcare rather than being reactive. Okay. So we're going to start with the C of closer. The C stands for clarifying questions. The main thing here is that we're trying to figure out what the problem is, right? So anybody that comes into our office or is signing up for a gym membership, they're doing it because they have a particular goal in mind. I mean, maybe that's just to be interactive in a gym, but most people probably want to lose weight or they're trying to move a little bit better. They want to be stronger. Whatever that reason is, we need to figure out why they haven't gotten there yet, right? And so I have some like pillar questions on there that you guys should be asking. And I kind of view these as like a tree, okay? So you have like your main branches on a tree, and then you have additional twigs on top of that that are going to allow you to dig deeper into their problem, okay? One of our core values as a company is MMFI, which means make me feel important. So when we're talking to our members, either through an assessment process or through a phone call, these questions shouldn't just be you asking questions for the sake of getting the answer and writing it down. And I can't tell you guys how often I see that with new trainers where they're just writing answers to the questions rather than continuing to dig deeper into that problem, right? And so Luke's sitting right across from me right now, so I'm gonna like kind of use him as an example. So Luke, I'm gonna need you to talk loud, okay? Okay, so Luke, if I asked you to come to the gym and I was like, hey, Luke, what are you looking to accomplish here? Like, what's your goal? Okay, so Luke, you're trying to put on as much muscle as possible, okay? I mean, what's like warranted you doing that? I mean, what makes you feel like you need to put on more muscle? Okay, so the problem is that you feel small and you want to get bigger, and that'll make you feel more confident, right? And so the reason I'm asking these questions, and that's all I'm going to end with, right, is just that his goal isn't necessarily to get bigger. His goal is to be more confident and to essentially get like social, I guess, what's the word? He wants people to like get like social approval, right? And so he's just trying to get confidence, and it's not necessarily that he just wants to get bigger, but now that I've asked deeper into that question, he's going to feel like I care a little bit more. And that's a big part of these clarifying questions, guys, is that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so as we're questioning our clients as to, I mean, what their goals are, we want to dig deeper into what stopped them from getting there. And again, make them feel important. Okay, we can go on to the next one. All right, so the L for closer stands for labeling the problem. All right, so I was just talking to Luke and he told me that his goal was that he wants to get bigger. Okay, so I need to figure out what stopped him from getting bigger so far. All right, and the big thing is that we can't solve a problem that doesn't exist. And so a lot of times when we're doing like contacts, for example, so let's say you call a member, right? And all of you guys as new trainers, if you haven't already like learned about this, you will, but you're going to get like 50 free training sessions that you get to give out as a PT. Okay, so you call these members that aren't coming into the club, and the first thing they say is, hey, I'm Luke with Genesis Health Clubs. I just want to see how you're doing today. And they're going to say, oh, I'm doing great. You're like, awesome. I just want to let you know you have 4 free personal training sessions on your account. When can we get you in to use those? Why would they come in, right? 7 out of 10 people don't believe there's a problem in the first place. So if we don't ask them questions to figure out what's stopping them from coming into the gym and like essentially build up that problem that they're facing, they're not going to think that they need anything. Okay. If I offered Luke to cut his hair right now and he just got his hair cut last week, he's probably going to tell me no, right? If he doesn't need it, he's not going to do it. So I have to build up a reason why he would need a haircut. So it's the same thing when we're, making these phone calls or we're doing these consults. We have to question until we get to a problem, right? And so I put some verbiage on there for how you can go about that, because you don't want to just say, hey, Luke, the problem is your hair's too long, right? Or I want to say, or tell a member essentially that like, hey, you're just not working out enough, right? We want them to agree with the problem. Okay, so one of the verbiage, so, okay, stop me if I'm wrong, but what it sounds like is, and then you have your blanks there. So what it sounds like is maybe in the past you didn't come in as often as you originally planned, and you didn't have like a progressive program you were following. And those sound like the 2 big things that were holding you back. Would you agree with that? Right? And we ask that question, would you agree with that at the end? Because we want it to be their idea. It's their problem. After they've agreed with it, now we can attach ourselves to the solution. All right, what would you say has stopped you from, following a progressive program? Is it the knowledge of like how to create a program? Is it having somebody there to hold you accountable? Is it that the program wasn't structured well enough that it would work around your busy schedule? And they might say, maybe it was a structure thing. So they're going to say like, yes, it was just that I couldn't get it in around my schedule. And then you can respond with, awesome. So what we are going to do is we're going to create a program with you that's going to fix that and work around your schedule, right? So we're attaching ourselves to the solution that we're going to be providing. And then so later on, when we go into the portion where we're actually going to talk about the investment side of things, we've already attached ourselves towards solving the problem. So they feel like we technically are the solution. You can go to the next one, Andy. Okay, so the O for closer stands for overviewing past pain. Okay, there's a lot of benefits to this. Again, the client feels heard. Okay, and I put that same statement on there where people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So if a member is telling me that in the past they worked with a trainer and the trainer never got their programs to them on time, right? And they felt like every time they would make progress, they would for like 4 weeks, and then the program would be old and they needed a new one, and the trainer would take 4 weeks to the next one, right? And so I'm going to respond back to that client with like, oh my goodness, I'm sure that must have been super hard where you were like killing it for 4 weeks and then you just immediately lost all of your progress. Or you were killing it for 6 months and then suddenly the trainer started showing up late or wasn't showing up at all. And suddenly you didn't have someone there to hold you accountable and you lost everything you had gained. We got to make sure not to do that this time around, right? And again, you guys kind of hear my tonality there where I'm essentially showing them that like, one, I care a lot, but then on top of that, we need to create a gap between them doing this alone versus them doing this with you, right? And again, just so you guys know, we're creating that gap because from like a statistics standpoint, we know that them having our assistance is what's best for them. You guys might not have faced that yet, but you're going to go through some consults where like you're sitting there and you're like, there's no way this person's going to succeed without me. There's no chance. And it's really hard because you know that, but they don't necessarily know that yet. So you have to tiptoe around a little bit. And so this is why we have these tools at hand. One of the best questions you can ask is right there at the top, right? If you're trying to overview past pain, I imagine this is not your first time trying to solve this issue. What have you tried in the past? And so the member might tell you that they've tried Orange Theory, they've tried keto, they've tried all these other weird like fitness trendy options. And your job again is just to listen and truly care about what they're saying and then tell them why it's going to be different this time around. Next one, Andrew. S. Okay, so at this point, right, just to like recap you guys, we've asked some questions, figure out what their goals are. We figured out a problem. Okay, we've overviewed the past pain of the problem, right? And so now we want to sell the vacation, right? So this is where we sell essentially the solution itself. And so you guys see I have a baby crying on an airplane versus a beach, okay? You guys all kind of know hopefully what that's alluding to. Essentially, when I'm deciding that I want to take a trip to Florida and I want to take like a week off of work and I want to go hang out at the beach, I'm not typically thinking about the fact that I'm gonna have to sit on a plane for 5 hours and it's gonna be really tight and it's hot on the plane and I'm gonna have to pay for my luggage and they might lose my luggage. We don't want to talk about all these things. And so it's the same thing when we're talking to a member. Most of the time, what we think in our head when we're talking to a member is like, oh, this will be great. I'm going to sound really smart right now. I'm going to talk to this program about how we're going to do carb cycling, or talk to this member about how we're going to do carb cycling. One, the member is not going to understand you in the 5 to 10 minutes that you talk about carb cycling anyways. And two, it sounds hard. You're making it sound super, super difficult for them to make progress. Okay. The whole point of hiring you as a personal trainer is that it should be easier to make progress. So we don't want to go through all the hard parts of personal training. We're not going to talk about, hack, squat, drop sets. Details always sound like work. I have some verbiage over there on the side. So one thing I love to do, and you kind of loop overviewing past pain with selling vacation at the same time, is you can talk to them about what they did in the past. So, hey, you nailed it on coming to the gym frequently. You were eating the right foods. Seems like the only thing you were missing, the one piece of the puzzle, was that you weren't doing resistance training. And then again, I'm going to attach myself to that solution. I'm so excited that I get to walk you through that this time around. I know that can be scary. We're going to kill it, right? So I'm making it sound super, super simple. Like we're only missing that one piece of the puzzle, but I'm attaching myself as the barrier for entry. Essentially, like, yeah, they might be able to do resistance training on their own, but I'm even going to call it scary because it can be, because you're going to do things wrong. And so I'm going to attach myself towards making sure that that's not going to be scary for them and it's going to be easy. Okay, so this is where it's going to get a little bit more complicated. So everybody bear with me a little bit. But E is where we explain away the concerns. Okay, this is where we're essentially doing our pitch. We have the RBT card down there at the bottom. And so if you're looking at the RBT card, you kind of see everything we've talked about so far. In the goals section, that's where you're going to write over your clarifying questions, like what are their goals? And hopefully when you're filling that out, you have 4 to 5 to 6 different goals you're writing on there. It shouldn't just say lose weight. It should be like body fat percentage down 10%, lean body mass up 20 pounds, like all these specific things they're wanting. I want more energy. I need my cardio to be better. Okay, so there's where I'm going over their clarifying questions. L, where I'm labeling my problem, that's my X factor. All right, and if you're looking at the script, we usually say to use consistency or efficiency. 90% of the time, it's going to be consistency, where the members just hasn't been consistent either enough over a long enough time span or consistent enough in like the micro in terms of like on a weekly basis. Okay, so that's like what we're solving for. That's our problem. And then when we're talking about selling the vacation, that's where we're filling out the little game plan, right? And so we have, hey, we're going to do PT 3 days a week. We're going to do group fitness 1 day a week, and you're going to follow a program 1 day a week. And that's going to guarantee get us to our goal, right? So you go through all that, you're all excited, and you go ahead and you give them the pitch, and they say no. Okay, so that's where E, explaining away the concerns, really comes in. We have a saying over here at West Central where we want no easy clients. Okay, what that means is we almost want to hear a little bit of a no, because a member's first time for saying no, a lot of the times will be the reason they quit in the future, or the reason why they don't come at all if they end up not teaming up with you. Our goal either way is that we want our members to use the gym more, whether they end up using it with you or using it on their own or just doing group fitness, whatever it is. And so by hearing no, we get to hear the reason why they're avoiding the gym. And so our follow-up to that first no is always, does the program make sense to you? Do you like the program? Do you believe in the program? Okay. Sometimes you'll get a really, really simple answer. Somebody's going to say, no, I don't really believe in it. And you're going to say, okay, well, what's the biggest problem with the program? And they're going to say, well, there's no, like, I need help with nutrition. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't tell you about that. We do like a full nutritional analysis on what you're currently doing. We come up with a game plan with you to solve your nutrition. Now that you know that, does this seem like a better option? And then hopefully they might just say yes, right? So that's always our first question, the moment somebody tells us no. Okay. On here, I've looped or linked our cognitive distortions video that's done by Andy and I. And if you don't know who Andy is, he's a director with our company. He's also my boss, like in the club that I'm in, where we talk about cognitive distortions in even more detail than potentially what I'm going to do today. But we are going to kind of go over them because we're going to have time for sure. So I decided to list them in there. Either way, I encourage all you guys to check out that podcast. We have probably, I think, 16 or 17 episodes over a bunch of crazy cool stuff. But let's get back into what we're talking about. So when a client says no, right, there's usually 3 reasons, and we call them cognitive distortions. Essentially, they're like beliefs that aren't real. All right, so we have circumstances, we have others, and we have self. Okay, and so we're going to go through the specifics of each one of those, and I even have some verbiage that we can use to kind of navigate around it. All right, so we're going to go to the next slide, Andy. Okay, so the first circumstantial no, right, is usually going to be time. A lot of the times you're going to hear that somebody doesn't have time, and this could be especially on like a phone call. So if I call a member and they tell me, hey, I ask them, I'm like, hey, what's been stopping you from going to the gym? It seems like you've only been here twice since you joined 2 months ago. I mean, what's been keeping you out? And they're going to say, well, I just really haven't had time right now. Okay, so I'm going to ask for them the question, all right, around your time, is it more of like the overall time, like you're kind of in the busy season for the next month or two, or is it more on like a weekly basis or a daily basis where you're running out of time? And they might say something in the macro where it's the busy season for me right now, or I'm busy the next month or two because my sister's having surgery, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so our follow-up to a question like, or a distortion like that, or a statement like that is, well, do you plan on getting busy again in the future? Okay, so what they're going to usually say is like, well, yeah, of course, like once this gets solved, I'm sure something else will come up. Okay, and then maybe they won't say that. Maybe they'll say no. Either way, you're going to tell them, of course, you're going to get busy in the future. That's essentially how life works. We're always going to find spots where we can get busy. That's actually why this is the best time for you to sign up, because we're going to get good at this while you're busy. So we're going to get good at navigating your schedule in the busy season so that the next time you get busy, it's not a problem for us where we have to stop training or stop exercising. Okay. If we run into a micro issue where it's like, I just can't find the time during the day to make it to the gym. Okay. This one's more of like an off the cuff one. So make sure you're laughing at the end of it, but you're going to say something along the lines of, well, I imagine you didn't sign up to the gym planning on not coming in, right? And hopefully they'll think that's funny and they're going to say, yeah, I guess that's true, right? Because who signs up for a gym membership knowing that they don't have the time to come in and use the gym? Doesn't make any sense. Okay. And they know that too. And so then they're going to say, yeah, of course. And so you follow up with the question, well, when you originally signed up, when did you plan on coming in? Right? Or if you had to give me like a no doubter time where you guaranteed for sure could make it, what time would that be? All right. So after they tell you that time, then it's really, really easy. You move into just saying, awesome, I actually have that time available at Thursday. Here's what I'm going to do for you. And then you book the appointment, right? So here's what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to get you in, take you through an assessment, and we're going to go over your schedule and talk about other strategies my clients have used in order to navigate their busy schedules in the past. Does that sound like a good plan? And they're going to say yes, and then they're booked and you're ready to go. Okay, so you get them in for the assessment, and then make sure you talk about the things you're actually talking about over the contact. This does work with consultations too when you're closing. You can move on to the next one, Eddie, you're good. All right, so the next cognitive distortion is going to be value or fit, right? A lot of the times you're going to hear somebody tell you that it's just too expensive. The fit one, I think, is a little bit more rare. So they're going to say that, I guess, it like doesn't fit their budget, if anything. This will be the most common one you run into. And if you're killing it during your PFA process and you're going through labeling the problem and overviewing the past concerns, usually this is the biggest one and it's the realest one. Okay. So a couple of different things you can try when you're going through a value problem. So the first one is going to be, let me ask you a question. If it were the perfect program, would this investment still seem like too much? So if they say no, it wouldn't seem like too much, you say, all right, well, what's the difference between this program and the perfect program? And then again, they might just tell you something super simple where it's like, well, I need nutritional guidance. And it's like, oh, I forgot to tell you, we do that. And so you talk to them about nutritional stuff real quick. Now that you know that, does this seem like a good idea? Yes, awesome. Then you go sign it up and you're good to go. Okay. If they say yes to that, right, now we're in like a different scenario. This is a yeah, so we're in a different scenario because maybe this is the perfect program for them. Or maybe they've already told you that it is a perfect program. If it's still too expensive, now we need to look at alternative programming. Okay. And so you can ask the question, well, I really do like that program. I think it's the best program for you, but not everybody can do exactly what's perfect. And so maybe to start out, we start with something on the lower end of things in terms of our interaction. And so I'm going to ask the question, is it the upfront cost or is it more of the long-term investment that's giving you concern? And so when you're doing your pitches, potentially you've done like a package of like 36 sessions 3 times a week. And then potentially you've done like a monthly option where it's like you're talking about it being like a reoccurring payment. So that's essentially what you're asking them is which one's scarier, the reoccurring payment or the upfront investment. And if they tell you it's the upfront investment, you'd be like, okay, so in terms of like the monthly amount, does this seem like a better plan? Again, I'm still trying to latch myself onto that original frequency that I told them I wanted them to train at. So hopefully it's like 3 days a week. So I'm going to say, all right, cool, let's roll with, doing the monthly option. And if they still say that sounds like too much, that's where we roll into the feel, felt, found. Again, this is on your scripts, so hopefully you guys have read some of this. If you haven't, when you go look back at it, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. Fair warning, I'm going to butcher this because I'm horrible at feel, felt, found. But what we'll say is, I understand how you feel. A lot of my clients felt the same way in the past, but what they found is that although investing in yourself is one of the hardest investments to make, it's also the one that gives you the highest return. Okay, so our other options could be that we lower interaction down to 2 days a week frequency. Okay, that does bring the monthly investment down to X. Okay, does this seem like a better starting point for us? All right, we can go to the next one. Others. All right, so others is 90% of the time I need to talk to my wife, but sometimes, or I guess husband, spouse, etc. Sometimes you'll get somebody that says like, oh, my doctor told me I couldn't exercise, and that's like a case of malpractice, and that's a whole different debate we're not going to get into today. And maybe somebody will like say they need to pray on it, and I don't necessarily know what you do in that situation, but it can certainly happen. I haven't ran into it. Okay, so whenever we get a spousal disagreement, okay, they're essentially putting the blame on why they can't solve their problem on somebody else. That's a really scary thing, because imagine going home to your wife every day and having to think about the fact that you're still overweight because she wouldn't let you take part in some program, right? And we're going to talk about how to navigate that, because now we're talking about not only are we changing them on like an exercise scale, we're also coaching them through life at this point, which sounds crazy, but welcome to the value that we provide at Genesis, right? So first question is going to be, does your wife know we're meeting today and about the goals you have or the pain points they're facing? Is there any reason she'd be opposed to you starting a plan to solve these issues today? Odds are they're going to say no, because why would their wife be opposed to them getting rid of their back pain? Why would their wife be opposed to them losing the 40 pounds that makes them feel bad when they look at themselves in the mirror, right? Maybe they say yes, and they're just going to tell you it's the investment portion. So then you're back down to, again, where it's a value issue, right? And 90% of the time it's a value issue, and we want to get to the point where it is a value issue. Next question could be, is there an amount that your wife would not be upset about you investing towards solving these problems? That's like a harder one where you need to make sure you built up some good rapport. I don't love asking about somebody's budget because we're not accountants, but certainly you can ask that, and you can like precursor with like, hey, I'm going to shoot a little bit straight with you. Is there an amount your wife would not be upset about you investing towards solving these problems? Okay, cool part about that is sometimes people are like, whoa, my wife is like deciding whether I solve these problems or not and how much money I'm allowed to spend. All right, screw it. I'm going to train 3 days a week. And that happens sometimes too, but there might be a lower investment amount where we can go ahead and enroll that person now. Brandon, I know you have the statistics. Maybe you have them off the top of your head, but when we see a consultation, I believe there's less than a 50% chance likelihood that they show up for a second appointment. Is that right, Brandon? You can nod your head or shake your head no. It's like less than 50%, right?
Yeah, it's less than 50% that they'll come for their first comp session.
Yes. So if we get somebody in for a consult, guys, we need to take that opportunity to get some level of investment that's going to bring them back in. And so even if that's a lower tier investment right now, maybe instead of them doing 36 sessions, they're doing 12, or instead of them training 3 days a week, they're training 1. If we can get them started on a plan, they might go home and talk to their wife or their spouse or whatever, and their spouse will be like, oh, no, you shouldn't even worry about it. You could totally train more often. And you can ask them when they come back in, hey, you talk to your spouse, did she talk, or did you guys talk about the idea of possibly interacting more? I really still think that's the best plan for us. And now you have the opportunity to go back up to 2 days a week or 3 days a week frequency. But again, you're over 50% chance they're not coming back in if you don't sign them up on that first day. Okay, so we have to go ahead and make that push today to get that lower tier investment. And then the last thing I have on there is support rather than approval. And so again, it's kind of what I was talking about here in the beginning, where if we can go through some of these questions, let's say I was working with Luke again, I'm going to kind of use Luke as an example. So I was like, hey, Luke, here's what I want to do. You feel like this is the best plan for you, right? You say yes. Okay, awesome. So what I want you to do is I want you to empower yourself a little bit. When you go home today and you go talk to your wife about this, I want you to ask her for support rather than approval. Because my greatest fear is that you leave here today and you ask your wife, like, hey, can I work with this trainer? I know he's going to solve my problems and I really want this. She says no. And every time you have to look in the mirror and remember the fact that you're not as big as you said you wanted to be, you have to attach that emotion to the fact that your wife said no, right? So we ask for support from our spouse on this decision. You say, hey, I'm going to make this decision. All that I'm asking you to do is support me in my goal, right? All right, next thing. All right, so the last cognitive distortion that we're going over is self. And you usually hear the words like, I need to think about it. This is one of my favorite ones because sometimes it's a little funny on some of the things you can say. I know Alex Ramosi, and I think one of my trainers does this too, but I can't remember who it is. They would just say, okay, what are we thinking about? And they just look at them. They wait for them to tell them. I think that's hilarious. But I know Aiden, who's I think a top 10 trainer in our company, hopefully this year, he's been with us for like a year and a half. His favorite thing is he says, do you know what the best day is to plant a tree? Okay. The best day to plant a tree is like 10 years ago. You know what the second best day is? It's today. So I'd love for us to get started on this plan today, since we've already missed out on it in the last, 6 months or last year. You can roll into more of like a logic role where you say, okay, when we say time, we really mean information. Our hope is that by giving ourselves time, we're going to get that information. The issue is I'm your only source of information around this program. So I'd love to think through it with you. What are areas of concern that you're having? Okay, so again, you're just asking them what they're thinking about. And then this is my personal favorite, because you kind of get a little excited, I guess. So if somebody says they need to think about it, I'm like, all right. So I rolled out that same thing. When we say we need time, we really need information. Okay, your hope tonight is that you're going to go home, you're going to like kick back in your recliner, you're going to puff on a cigar and think about like, man, should I really train with that Tiger punk from Genesis? And I literally say that in front of them, and they think it's hilarious, and they start laughing, right? And I say, of course you're not going to do that. You're going to get home tonight, and your kids are going to be running all over the house, and your husband's going to be mad that dinner wasn't ready, and a whole fiasco is going to go on. You're not going to get the time to think about this. So while we're here right now and I have the information for you, let's think through our concerns and see whether or not this is the best plan for us. That's my favorite. I think that's funny. I can't hear anybody laughing because it's a Zoom call, but I think it's funny. All right, next one. All right, R, reinforce the buying decision. This is the last letter of the closer framework. I think notoriously, as like a company, we need to do a better job with this. And I think there's some automated systems we can get put in place that would help you guys out. But we do have a system here at West Central that works really, really well. And I'm going to talk to you guys about how to do that. But big things to remember is that people decide within 48 hours whether or not they're going to buy again. Okay, so the moment they buy 12 sessions with you, in the next 2 days, they're going to decide whether or not they're buying another 12. Okay? Especially after a big purchase. If you've ever went and bought like a TV, or you bought headphones, or let's say you bought a laptop, or I bought a house a few years ago. First thing I did is I got back on Zillow and I started looking at other houses, because I was like, crap, I really hope I bought the right one. I just committed to do this for the next 30 years, right? And so we need to reinforce that decision as a positive one. Okay, so awesome. I'm so excited to get you rolling towards these goals we wrote down. Now, before we meet next, I have some homework for you. This is what most of my trainers do here at West Central. And that homework is really, really simple, but it just gives them something to attach to where it's like, cool, we're going to start interacting right away. And so that homework is usually, hey, I need you to log your food for me the next 3 days. And I think a lot of you guys, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my trainers, but a lot of us, we just have them send pictures of everything they eat, because most trainers or clients don't know how to log food on MyFitnessPal even correctly. So they just take a picture and they send it to us. But it immediately drives that interaction, and it gives me the reminder to text them the next day about how excited I am to work with them, right? So it continues to keep the emotions high. On top of that, we might have them be like, hey, I need you to go, do a 2,000 meter row test and send me that time over, because I'm going to use that to create your program. All right. The next day, you should hopefully be able to text them and have a program ready. Especially new trainers. I know anytime I sign somebody up, I was like, cool, I'm going to go work on their program tonight. I'm going to have it done. I'm going to send it over to them tomorrow, and they're going to love me. Now it takes me like a week to get a program done, because I only program on the weekends. But for you guys, the next day in the morning, hopefully, you say, hey, I have your program all wrapped up and wanted to send it over to you, so that next time we meet, you'll have questions ready, right? Or so you can look it over and bring questions the next time that we're going to meet. Again, this just automatically shows that we're going to provide value to this person, and it makes them feel better about the decision that they've made. And then next time, they're more likely to go ahead and just, purchase again if you did like a package. All right, we can go to the next thing. All right, so on here, I have some like of our resources. I don't know if there's a way, Andy, I guess you can probably email this out to everybody that's in attendance. But it has our podcast on there, some of my favorite videos from Alex Hormozi, and then we have like our script. Hopefully you guys have access to all these resources already coming from your fitness managers, but if you don't, I went ahead and listed the ones that I specifically mention a lot in this presentation. So you guys can kind of go back and look at those and review. We can go to the next one, Andrew.
Yeah, I'll throw them in the chat when we go to the Q&A, so people can grab them from there.
Perfect. All right, so the question is, where do we go next, right? So I've just given you guys like a ton of information. Maybe it was too much, maybe it was enough, and you followed everything I said. But the next step, right, it's going to be to practice, okay? We still want to sharpen the axe before we go cut down the tree. So how do we practice? right? The first thing that most people do is they just read through the script and they take some notes down. And I don't think that's a bad method. I think that's good. I think when you're doing it, you should print the script off, take notes next to what questions you actually want to use from the script, or maybe like cross a question out and write it in your own language, write it in the way that you speak, make it your own thing. That's a much better way of going through the script. Just reading through it, not great. Print that sucker out, actually go in and write into it, make it your own thing, take ownership of it, because when it's your own thing, you're going to love it, and then you're going to like doing it more. I think the second best thing you can do is record yourself. Definitely been something I've pushed a lot recently with my new trainers, and I think it makes a huge difference when you have to listen to yourself back and hear how many words you fumble over. So last night when I was preparing to do this presentation, because it's my first one of these, I recorded myself going through the slides like 3 different times, and I noticed that I keep saying and okay and sounds good and all these other things. And so I recorded myself just so I'd catch those things, and that's what allows me to make changes moving forward. Next step of practice is peer-to-peer. Go back. Okay, peer-to-peer, practicing on family and friends, and I mean doing it in the mirror. One big thing about peer-to-peer, and I'm using Luke because he's here right now. So I asked Luke the other day, I was like, Luke, have you done this in front of your girlfriend? And he's like, why do I need to do this in front of my girlfriend? And I was like, Luke, if you're too nervous to do this in front of your girlfriend, how are you not going to be nervous doing this in front of a guy that, I mean, could potentially train 5 days a week? Okay, do it in front of people that it's like hard for you to do it in front of it. I mean, I think it'd be more embarrassing to do it in front of my dad than like one of my buddies or one of my fellow trainers. So go do it to the person you're embarrassed to do it to, and that's how you get better. I'm terrified of doing these in front of Andy still to this day, or like doing meetings in front of Andy. I hate it. But I also realize that's where I get the most growth, is when I have to do it in front of Andy, because I prepare for it way harder and I'm much more diligent about, checking my mistakes. All right, now we can go to the next one. So before we get into the Q&A, I have like some of my personal best practices that I felt like have served me really well as a trainer, or things that I've done well. And so I'm just going to kind of run through them. If you think they're stupid, that's fine. But if you like them, cool, you should write them down. You should try to do them yourselves too. So the first one is ABC. Some of you guys might already know that stands for always be closing, but it also means always be contacting. And so one thing I do, like even to this day, if I go out to a public event, or even if I go out to eat at a restaurant, if I go to a restaurant in the city of Wichita, I make sure to walk to the bathroom, and I take a different way on the way back from the bathroom so I can look at every single person that's in the restaurant. I'm essentially looking for somebody that I know. If I see somebody I know eating dinner with somebody, I'm going to go up and talk to the person I know and introduce myself to the person that I don't know. Okay? All I'm trying to do is have more people know that I'm a personal trainer, and hopefully they think I'm a good one based off me just talking to my friend. If I'm at a grocery store, I'm going to wear my Genesis personal training stuff. If I go out to a public event and people ask me what I do, I'm going to very proudly tell them I'm a personal trainer at Genesis Health Clubs. And I'm going to ask them, do you exercise? Where do you work out at? Right? As if it's expected. Always, always, always be chasing that contact. I mean, we do this because we want to help people. We say that all the time. If that's truly the case, you're going to have no shame around showing everybody around you that you want to help them. Okay? Because again, most people, 71%, have no idea where they're at. Okay? Next best practice, being bad is a precursor to being good, right? And that kind of leads into the next one too, where it's like every mistake's an opportunity to learn as long as you're willing to admit it. I've seen trainers numerous times get discouraged around making phone calls or making contacts. I hated doing phone calls for a very long time, right? Because I hated the fact that I sucked at doing them and they never worked. Okay, but we have to understand that we're going to be bad at something before we can be good at it, and you have to be bad for a pretty long time before you get good. And it's another reason why you need to practice. Okay, a lot of you guys might feel like after this phone call, you're like, sweet, I got this, I'm going to kill it. You're probably still not that good yet. Okay, if you just picked up a basketball today and you never played before, I imagine you're not going to be a great basketball player. So do the practice, do the work. And when it comes to making mistakes as an opportunity to learn, that was one thing I think I killed when I first started too, is that every time I went through a consultation, or even when I went through training sessions, if I couldn't fix a problem with one of my clients, or I noticeably messed something up or made them their back hurt, I would go tell Andy about it. The first thing I would do is I'd go tell on myself. I'm like, hey, I did this thing, I messed this up, I made this member mad, etc. I still do this today. And that's where, even though it makes me super mad to hear him tell me what I did wrong and like how to get better, I understand that I have to do those things. I have to admit that mistake to him in order for me to get any better. Okay, don't wallow in your own self issues. Share those issues with the people around you that can help you. Next rule, no writing programs between 8 a.m. and 7 p.m. If I'm in the club and I'm not working with a client, I might as well be contacting somebody. Trainers will go hide in the back and work on programs all day because it's I guess, more fun than making contacts, but it doesn't serve you. It's more fun in the short term, but it's a lot less fun when your bills are due and it's tight and it's hard. Okay. If you've never been there, you could be, and it's not easy. And I'd rather face the hard of me making contacts in the middle of the day than face the hard of me stressing out around whether or not I'm going to make my bills. Next one is that you must give before you can ask. And I put parentheses willing to work for free on there. I mean, when I first started in this company, my first paycheck was $38. We have like a crazy cool system now where you guys have the opportunity to make significantly more income in the beginning. And I'm not like resentful, and I'm happy you guys all get that. But at the same time, like, I encourage all of you guys to be willing to work for free to some degree. Like, again, we're training people because we enjoy doing it. You should be reaching out to people. You're not getting paid to essentially do a contact, but you should be doing all these things because you want to, because you want to help people. And you're never going to like receive that massive income back if you're not going out and chasing the production that comes first. And then the last one is that everybody needs / would benefit from a PT. This one was a hard one for me to swallow when I first started too. But I remember Andy was like, all right, let me train you one day. And I think I made it was like 40 minutes, Andy, into our training session. We did a push day, and I was sore for like 3 or 4 days. And I realized I was doing everything wrong. And I'd been working out for like 6 years. My bench press was terrible. My lateral raises were bad. I mean, everything I thought I knew was just completely terrible. And I was a relatively fit individual when I started. Okay? 99.9% of people that walk through those doors don't know the things that you know, and they do need your help. And so I encourage you guys to chase that and try to give people that assistance. All right, that's it. Q&A time? Question mark?
Yeah, let's open it up to questions and feedback from the group. Not everybody at once. You got a great opportunity to ask a question from a man who's scheduled to make, I don't want to tell his income, but he's going to make more than I do this year. So now's your opportunity to ask the man, the myth, the legend some questions.
Okay, Justin wants to know how much I bench. Too little. Okay.
I have a question.
All right.
So let's say, I think one of the slides you spoke about, okay, how much are you willing to spend? Let's say they say like $50. Like, do we as personal trainers have the ability to lower that cost for them so that they can actually start coming in? Or like, what do you do from there?
So it depends where you're at, obviously, in your career. And so like, as a starting trainer, I encourage you to do as much PT as you can, regardless of what that looks like. And so if it ends up going down to that price point, it's somewhat up to you. You guys do operate your own business. If you wanted to do a 1 time a month, 30-minute session where you check in and you write programs for them at that price point, you're more than inclined to do that. You're still providing value back to them. You have the potential of them upgrading in the future. You could also roll into like a kick the can play. So like, potentially they say $50, but you know that they can afford more. So you can like laugh and be like, oh my goodness, that's ridiculous. But like, for real, like, I really do want to help you out. I think like our minimum level of interaction should be every other week. And that would be, $120 a month. And with that, I'm still going to provide for you nutritional programming and programming towards your weights and your exercise. Is that where we need to start out at and potentially look at upgrading in the future? Question mark. That would be the route I would go with that. But yeah, that'd probably be exactly what I'd do. You could do programming though at that price point.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, so apparently nobody else has more questions. That's fine. I am gonna put my phone number in the chat though for you guys right now, which I don't know if Andy and Brandon want me to do that, but I'm gonna do it anyways. I know when I first started, I would go ask Andy about some of the top PTs in our company, and I'd ask like, what are they doing that I'm not doing, or how do they do this, and this? And I never realized I could just look in the computer and look their phone number up and text them. So this is me telling you guys all right now, you have 100% right to text me or reach out to me whenever. There's already a couple of trainers in the Kansas City area that do reach out to me relatively regularly and ask me questions. And so when you guys run into problems, if your FN's unavailable, or maybe you just want an outside opinion, et cetera, I mean, feel free to reach out to me. Your first resource should certainly be the fitness manager at your club, because they're going to understand your market and your club better. But I have absolutely no problem with talking to any of you guys, whether it's a phone call or a text or talking over whatever. So take my number down and reach out whenever you need to, and I'm happy to work with anybody.
Great job, Tiger. Thank you so much for your time. I know your time is money to you especially, so I really appreciate you help our company getting better today. Thanks, everybody.